Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome you here to the fourth race of the season for the Clutch Drop Racing Cup Series. We're here today in upstate New York at Watkins Glen International Raceway. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCrory. And Anthony, fourth race of the season, and a lot of the road course aces get a shot of being able to maybe lock themselves into the playoffs here tonight, as rather early on in the schedule to be doing the rights and lefts.
It is a bit early in the schedule. It seems like that we usually see these road courses happen later in the season, midway through the season, really, as most of these leagues run. But the fourth race of the season, it is early, but it gives a chance for these drivers who are not necessarily good at ovals. I mean, pretty much everyone is good at some capacity at an oval, but the ones that really shine at road courses, they get a chance here, like you said, to really stretch their legs and show what they can do. And I'm looking forward to it because Watkins Glen is always a fun race. That no matter what league that we do, it always seems like it brings about the best type of racing. And given that these are cup cars here at the race, a classic combination, we should see some pretty good action, and I'm looking forward to tonight.
I think it's probably pretty easy to say that, no matter what type of car, no matter what type of style of racing you have, just about everybody is familiar with the configuration of Watkins Glen. This race is 55 laps in length. There will be 2 stages along the way. We'll get to that momentarily, but 3 races in, and it has already turned into a Mike Tellier versus Garrett Powell show. Mike Tellier winning the season opener at Daytona, last week at Las Vegas. Garrett Powell right in between with a win at Phoenix. And the two of them line up on the front row for this one. So again, continuing that rivalry here into the road course.
Yeah, it's going to get, more heated as the season goes on. This is only race 4. And, when you have drivers that are this close together as far as competition goes, and it even carries over to a race like this, then you can expect to see these two dogging it out for the rest of the season, as it very much is the Tellier Powell show. But both these drivers coming in with with a bit of a hot streak, but don't count out some of these other drivers like Brandon King and Tristan Mayer. They are within striking distance. It's very early in the season. If they have some good wins throughout the rest of the season, they could see themselves getting up towards the front and maybe taking the lead at some point later on in the season.
Now, as mentioned, this race is going to have 3 stages. Completion of stage 1 at lap 15, completion of stage 2 at lap 30, and then, of course, they run till the end of the race. And another thing we should mention as well, 60% fuel capacity for these drivers. They do not have a full tank of fuel, so in these stages, even though they're 15 laps in length, we're going to probably see these drivers on pit road at least once during these 2 stages, so we could see some strategy come into play.
Yeah, and it's always fun to watch strategy, especially when there's stage points on the line, and the fact that you could either pit during the race or during a stage. We're going to line them up to go green. The Porsche pace car comes off of pit road, or goes on to pit road rather, and we're green here at Watkins Glen. It looks like that Powell's going to get a pretty big jump. He's actually going to leave pretty much everyone in the dust going into turn 1. Tellier's going to be in second place, but now it's going to be a hornet's nest of cars right behind the 8 of Scott, Durand, and Stipe. They were running pretty much nose to tail. Now give it to about 2 wide and single file racing as we come around the S's for the first time.
It was hard to tell who exactly it was, but somewhere towards the rear of the field, a yellow machine shot towards the inside wall there, coming to the start-finish line. Still trying to pinpoint who that could have been. Also saw, I believe that was the 89 of Brandon King and the 37 of Raul Meza towards the back off the pace. So we had some kind of a stack up here coming to green, and a couple of drivers have sustained some early damage.
Yeah, the 37 of Meza is a bit off the pace, actually now just coming out of the bus stop. King and Hall are running kind of nose to tail with each other, but they're not off the pace. They're at the tail end of the field. Both of those lime green machines running nose to tail with each other. But yeah, Meza got the worst out of all of that. He's kind of fallen off the pace. We'll have to see if that was due to some first lap stack up going into turn 1, or if that was due to something else. But it's all Powell out front, as he has opened up a bit of an advantage to our second place driver, which would be Tellier. And Philip Scott is actually closing the gap, so the 3 and the 8 duking it out for the second place position.
Wow, David Castelli having an issue there going into turn one as that Napa Chevrolet wanted to snap around on him, heading into the downhill right-hander. I think that the car I may have seen almost go down to the inside wall there off the final corner coming to green might have been this, the number 17 of Tristan Mayer. It's the only yellow car that I can find in the field. I'm pretty sure it was a yellow car I saw shoot down to the inside, but so far, we remain green flag as Garrett Powell currently enjoying nearly a 3-second gap between himself and that second place car of Mike Tellier. I mean, he just shot out of a cannon.
He's got a very fast car here tonight, and that setup is running right for him at the moment. He's actually extending the gap, it seems, between him and Tellier, both in the first and second position in the point standings. The battle between second still there between Scott and Tellier, as that battle is still within a second. But if you go back to fourth through about sixth, it's really a battle between these drivers that are, I'm sorry, not fourth, it's about fifth on down through about seventh, rather. It's a battle between these drivers as it looks like that Castelli is going to go on Durand. Those two Napa cars trying to make a pass. The 9 here comes down into turn 1. Dive bombs it into turn 1. Can he get it slowed down in enough time? He does. Gets back on the power. Get that position to Castelli in the 9. What a pass.
Really surprised that he actually used turn 1, a corner that he had struggled with the lap before, to try and make that pass. Picks up 2 spots in the matter of a corner. Castelli now up into the top 5, leaving Durand and Mayer to battle for 6th. They're going to carry that down here into the inner loop.
Yeah, and they're going to go too wide. Mayer trying to make the pass work and got to get stamped on the brakes, and he does. That's going to bring Daly into the mix, and they're going to go too wide through the bus stop. Looks like they get through okay. So these drivers keeping it clean. It's hard racing. These drivers are racing each other like it's the last lap, and we just started this race, but they're keeping it clean. No one's run into each other thus far. They've been making passes. It's really nice to see that these drivers giving each other plenty of room and being aggressive where they need to be rather than always on top of each other, as now we got back to single file racing, and the 77 is around in the bus stop. Huge damage on the front end of Woodruff. Something happened to the 77 just recently. I think it was going into the bus stop.
See what happened here to the Castrol GTX Ford Mustang. No caution, however, as nobody was around him. I think he was running back at the very tail end of the field. Actually, that front end damage came a lot earlier than that spin in the bus stop. We'll try and see if we can find out what exactly happened to him. I wonder if this goes all the way back possibly to that lap 1 stack up, and it looks like that actually is indeed the case. Oh yeah, looks like Raul Meza as well got involved in this stack up, and this, as I said, was right at the initial drop of the green flag. Watch on the right side of your screen. Oh, looks like Mayer tried to make a move 3 wide, and Meza went to block him, and then a couple other drivers getting collected up. A lot of front-end damage on that 77.
He's trying to soldier on at the moment, still running on track. He's going through the S's at the moment. He's going to be caught by the leaders within a few laps. I would dare say it's going to be at least a couple of laps before they get to him, so I don't think it's going to be much of an issue in the immediate time frame. As your leader still Powell is actually open about a 5-second gap now, so they could. Oh, the 3's around. Tellier's around.
That's second place at the Mike Tellier, and that is important, really, if you think about it, just based on the fact that Mike Tellier is trying to continue to rack up stage points, as it's only 1 point separation between himself and our current race leader, Powell, for the points lead.
And in that same turn, it looks like that Daly went around the 15 as he's slow, got some rear end damage. I think he got run into going into turn 1. It's a little hard getting into T1 for these. Oh, there's the 9 and the 15 around on the run down into the bus stop. Castelli and I believe that's Mayer went around going on to the run into the bus stop. Huge damage on the front end of the 9 car. And Mayer not looking in the best of ways either, as he's still spinning going into the bus stop. So something happened on the exit of the S's between these two. That's not brought out a full course yellow at this point, but they're back going the right direction. You got to think something had to have snapped between those two.
Okay, we've been stuck here on the replay screen for a particular reason. The reason being that we've been having some problems with our cameras here. We've actually swapped our cameras over. We're going to quickly go back and look at what happened to Mike Tellier from the second position. Then we'll take a look at this incident you were just talking about between the 17 and the 9. But already a lot of issues taking place early on here at Watkins Glen. The big problem for these guys is the fact that with it being a road course, unless there's like a huge pileup that takes place, usually you don't get yourself a full course yellow.
And you're going to be looking at some replays for a while as the 43 of King just went around at the exit of turn 1. So these drivers, they were doing well, and now all of a sudden we're seeing a lot of them have some problems. I don't know if it's just the close racing that they've been having or if they've had some issues with the tire wear, as the track temps I don't think are too high at this race this weekend. There's something that has happened in the last couple of laps. Maybe the tire wear is also falling off. Maybe these tires aren't as up to speed as they'd like them to be, but the 43, the latest of the drivers have gone around, and man, just a lot of action happening. We're doing our best to keep up with it, but there's so much going on right now. It's kind of wild keeping up.
Here's the latest incident with Nick King out of turn number 1. And boy, I mean, Watkins Glen is one of those tracks where coming off the corner, it's so flat. And so if you get back to the throttle a little too soon, you discover that wheel spin, the grip underneath the car just isn't there, and it sends the car around. And I guess the only saving grace that there is for a couple of these drivers, like the 17 and the 9, who took some hard shots there into the steel guardrails heading up through the S's, is the fact we do have the stage caution, I should say, coming up here at the completion of lap 15. So if they can at least limp those race cars around here, finish out the stage on the lead lap, they've got an opportunity to come down under yellow and get some repairs done.
Yeah, that would be crucial for those drivers, and it's thankful that they do have that option at their disposal. As in the bus stop, there's some action going on between some of these drivers, and it looks like that the 15, the 39, and the 24, there was some contact, and the 39 had to check up and actually almost spun it around in the bus stop. That would have been, I believe that's Tufts that almost went around, and then Daly scampered away, and then Durand almost came in and hit the 39, but everyone's got going back the right direction. And Seth, it's been non-stop since the beginning of the race. Is this more or less what you expected out of these drivers? Because to me, it's like they're racing on the last lap every lap, and it's actually it's a thrill to watch.
Well, I'm actually really surprised about some of these incidents that took place, like with second place Tellier at the time, the incident between Mayer and Castelli, who were up at the time battling for the 6th position. The reason being, they were in line to get stage points. I saw all that racing from like 7th on back through 10th. That made sense because these drivers were all battling for some stage points. As I think we had another incident out of turn 1. That's Travis Daly in the 15. He has hit hard somewhere as the whole front hood of that car is completely gone. But I mean, these guys are obviously battling for these stage points at the latter half of the top 10. But to completely fully answer your question, guys up here having incidents inside the top 5, that shocks me that we're having these many incidents with them this early on.
And I believe that, speaking of another incident, the 38 of Guerrieri.
We got another spinner there in the bus stop. Sorry to cut you off, but Nathan Hall just on the top of our screen there going into the sand pit through the chicane.
I'll make that 2 on the same lap. Guerrieri and Hall going off in 2 separate parts of the racetrack, but it's been the 2 same parts of the racetrack that we've seen a lot of these incidents happen. Anywhere between turn 1 all the way up through the exit of the bus stop. No one else has really spun it anywhere else on the racetrack, so the second half of the track has been pretty much incident-free. It's stark contrast to what we saw at the very first beginning of the race, the opening laps, the opening 2 laps where everyone kind of minded the P's and Q's, but now it looks like they're trying to push, seeing that the misfortune of other drivers looking to try and capitalize on those positions. They know that they're within a shot now with some of these that have had some spins out of turns and not running up to speed. Some of these drivers heavily damaged. These drivers that are looking to capitalize on that are trying to push their car just a little bit harder and maybe not getting it right down to the where it needs to be. And so we've seen a few drivers push their luck in pretty much the same places. And I just watched these 2 wide battles, or these 2 car battles, I should say, and it just makes me nervous. I mean, a lot of them are running super close together. You almost think that if they make the wrong mistake, we could end up with a multi-car pileup, which I believe would bring out a full course yellow at this point. We're still green for those of you that are just tuning in. We've had a lot of stuff happen in the early stages of the race. The first 10 laps have been nothing short of epic, as the 39 is off track going into turn 10, I believe that is.
We got to pay our camera crew a little bit extra here tonight. I mean, they have been on point with all of these different incidents. We saw at the time 3rd place Dylan Stipe. He went around and hit the steel guardrail exiting out of turn number 1 just moments ago. We also saw the, I believe that was the 15 of Daly. He blew the chicane, went into the sand trap. I mean, a lot of drivers are having some issues here early on. And you brought up the point about what the track conditions are for these drivers. Well, outside temperature 90 degrees, 80 degrees rather, track temperature 92 degrees. So a little bit slick here for these drivers, obviously. And we're obviously seeing that here as we're about 4 laps away from getting that first caution to end this stage.
And the leader is now starting to lap a lot of drivers that are kind of falling off the pace. He's actually about ready to lap the 9. That would be the second driver to go a lap down on the racetrack. As Castelli, he's now been caught by the 87 of Powell. And Powell, this is the best case scenario for him. He's opened about a 10-second lead over Scott, which would then put him pretty much in cruise control for the points, or as far as the points are concerned, because with the misfortune that Teller has had, he's going to be able to extend his points lead out to, well, he's actually going to take the points lead. He's only came in 1 point behind Tellier, so having that misfortune on him, I think we're going to see a new points leader when we head next week. Going into next week, we should see him take it, if not already taken it. You
saw there Nathan Hall having an issue going through the bus stop right in front of leader Garrett Powell. And yeah, to your point as well, people are probably wondering, well, if Mike Tellier has 2 wins and Garrett Powell only has 1, how is it that Garrett Powell comes into this race only 1 point back? Well, Garrett Powell has a stage win this season. Mike Tellier, despite his 2 trips to victory lane, has none. And those stage points come into play hugely in terms of who is positioned where in the standings. It doesn't necessarily affect the number of wins you have in your win column, but it certainly does affect as far as trying to win the regular season championship. And about 3 laps away, maybe 2.5 laps away, Garrett Powell from maybe picking up his 2nd stage win of the season.
That'll be important.
Oh, we got another car just in front of him in trouble. That's the 38 of Vincent Guerri.
Guerri has gone around again, and I believe that's the same place. Now, I think he went around in turn 1 the last time around, now in the bus stop. That was in front of the leader. So you're not safe no matter where you're at on the racetrack, as the leader almost had a bit of an off with the 38, the spinning 38. He's gotten away from that as he continues to extend his lead over Philip Scott, who now has to deal with slower traffic. Both these drivers have been the fastest wholesale throughout the entire race, as the gap between Scott and Stipe is 23.7 seconds. That's a long way back, considering how short these races are, but that will be eliminated in a couple laps' time as the stage will end and the field will get bunched back up together. Now, at the end of this stage, with the way that these drivers have been driving aggressively, do you expect that on the restart, when we go back for stage 2, what are we going to expect into turn 1? We saw them get through it okay the first time around. No one really ran into each other, but now that you have some of these drivers that have got some damage on their car, maybe not able to get on the brakes as easy as they would be otherwise, going into some of these turns, what is that going to be like on the restart when everyone's bunched together?
I mean, I'm watching these guys right now. Just saw Mike Tellier really mess up going into the final corner, trying to take 4th place away from Justin Belmonte. And I don't really know. These guys just seem like they have a lack of grip underneath them. I would hope that they would be realizing that here on this run and applying it to being a little bit more conservative, a little bit more careful on this next restart. But we saw so many different things taking place, so many different incidents taking place here under this first stage. Something just kind of says to me that they're not going to let up. And a lot of drivers running around here with a lot of damage, and there are no fast repairs in this league. And so at this point, you've got what you've got for the remainder of the race, whether the car be pristine like Garrett Powell or torn up like drivers back there like Travis Daly, David Castelli, 77 Blaine Woodruff. I mean, all these drivers look like they've been in a demo derby running towards the rear of the field.
Yeah, it's been a battle of attrition for those drivers. It's more or less them versus the racetrack as the race has gone on. Only race 4 on the season. So it throws a bit of a curveball when you're used to running in some leagues that don't have a road course until, say, maybe race 17. Some leagues go to race 17 before they have a road course. If it's a Cup series, if some races have it as soon as just after race 9 or 10. But race 4, so like we said at the top of the program, it shows that, you can throw a curveball like this, and some drivers are going to respond to it well, like Powell has. Other drivers are going to crack under the pressure, as we've seen, Woodruff, Hall, Daly, Guerrieri, they're struggling right now, and I believe this is an open setup league, so maybe you're not quite sure how to set your car up for a road course, and that could play into how your car handles throughout the race. The track temps certainly don't help, and if you're not used to running road courses with these cup cars, it's not the easiest thing to muscle these things around a road course for as long as this race is, and it's a long one. A 55 lap race here is no small feat, as these drivers are going to be constantly on off the throttle, looking around, making sure that they can muscle the car around without spinning it, because these are very powerful cars, and compared to a lot of the other series that run at this track, not a whole lot of downforce on these cars that can keep them glued to the racetrack.
Well, Garrett Powell just took lap 15, about to come around and complete it, which then we should be seeing the race officials throwing the caution, completing this first stage. Garrett Powell looking for his second stage win of the season. Philip Scott back there in second. Even though he is 16 seconds back, he's en route for his best finish in a stage so far this year. He finished fourth. That was his highest in stage 1 back at Phoenix. Gonna best that. Dylan Stipe, which despite his spin over in turn 1, looks like he's going to be able to get third, followed by Justin Belmonte and Mike Tellier, who's had a couple of incidents here, as there is the caution. And we're going to find out who the top 10 are crossing the line. Right now, Brandon King is in line for 6th, Caden Tufts for 7th, David Durand, Nick King, and Tristan Mayer look like they would be the top 10. Not really anybody close enough to any of those drivers to challenge for positions, so looks like those would be the drivers that will get stage points here in the first stage tonight at Watkins Glen.
We find ourselves under a bit of a breather period for some of these drivers. They were hoping that stage would end so they can kind of collect their thoughts, reassess what their car can do, and get onto the pit road for some much needed repairs, as they didn't want to abandon possibly going multiple laps down if they had to repair for a long time. So now they have a bit of a period where they can come down, make some repairs as necessary. Longer laps that these drivers have to do being under the safety car, as we are going through the bus stop right now. Some of these drivers that are lapped down might be able to get a wave around. I don't know if that's going to be the case, because they're going to definitely want to come down and get some repairs and some fresh tires, so they might not be able to take the wave around this time by. One lucky dog, though, that would, I think, go to Raul Meza, who is the first car on the lead, or on a lap down.
And Raul Meza's evening started dismal from the initial drop of the green flag. He was caught up in that stack up when he was taken 3 wide by Tristan Mayer. And, just looking here through a lot of these drivers that managed to finish the stage on the lead lap, you can look right up here inside of our top 5, and there are going to be drivers that are going to be on there on pit road a little bit longer for some damage repairs. Dylan Stipe was involved in an incident. He's in 3rd. Mike Tellier was involved in a couple of incidents. He's in 5th. David Durand, I saw he had quite a bit of rear end damage on his 24. He's in 8th. So big opportunity for some of these drivers to be able to come down, try and get their cars repaired as best they can. You wouldn't necessarily think it, but Watkins Glen with some of these longer straightaways really depends on the cars being aerodynamically sound, as looks like Garrett Powell is going to be bringing pretty much everybody on the lead lap down pit road. No surprise here to see everybody take the opportunity, if not for the fresh tires, to get that fuel, because as we said, they do not have the full 100% fuel capacity in those tanks.
And we're not exactly sure how long they can go, even though they don't have the full capacity. So we don't really know how far they could have gone under this green flag run. We made it to 15 laps. No one came down pit road, not even anybody that was damaged. So we know they can at least make that. However, depending on how close they were, can they make it the next stage on 1 tank of fuel? I'm willing to wager the answer is no, but that could throw a curveball into what I said, because maybe they can, if they run smooth enough, they might be able to maybe push it towards the end of the stage. And if they can get it to the end of the stage and pit under the end of that stage, they might be able to benefit from that being under yellow. They'll be able to keep their position. Although if Powell or Teller has got a big enough lead, it shouldn't matter too much.
Well, I mean, Garrett Powell, the race leader, was able to go those full 15 laps on what he had in the tank. looks like we're going to be going back green somewhere around maybe lap 19, and they are racing to lap 30. So that's actually only about, what, 11, 12 laps that they're going to have to run before we get our second stage caution. The big question mark on what they can make on fuel would be that third and final stage, because we would probably be going back green in that one with somewhere around 22 to 24 laps to go. I'd be a little bit questioning on whether they could make it that full distance, especially with the fact, obviously they want to make it, a lot of these type of races come down to drivers having to think about fuel. I would be very surprised if they decided to not have the final stage distance short enough where they'd be able to make it on fuel. I think they want to throw that little bit of a curveball in here, so some of these race leaders have to decide, do I want to come to pit road now when the window is open? Do I want to come to pit road as soon as I start running out of fuel? Because it could be a race-winning decision.
Could very well be, and depends on how much fuel you take on, determines how fast you might be, because fuel weight does matter in these cars, and if you run with a little less fuel, then you might be a little bit faster, able to get around some of these turns a little bit quicker than some fellow competitors. Also, it'll put you on a clean pit road, which, despite how busy or unbusy that pit road can be, it could give you an advantage as you get out, get some clean air, able to pull away as the lights have come off the safety car. So we'll be going back to green on lap 19, as you said, and we'll be racing to lap 30. Garrett Powell, Mike Tellier, and Brandon King make up your top three. Seth, it's been a week full of road courses for us, and it caps off tonight here at Watkins. We've been to Watkins twice so far this week. It's been a bit of a week for all of us here at FRN.
I've begun to dream in right and left-hand turns, I think, because 3 races at the Roval, 2 races here this week at Watkins Glen, and you brought up the question of how far these drivers can go on fuel. We might have a guinea pig. 15 of Travis Daly we saw there taking the wave around. He has not been to pit road since the initial drop of the green flag to start this race. So if he is planning on taking the wave around here and maybe making a green flag pit stop during the second stage, he might be the guy we're going to be able to figure out of just how far these drivers really can go on 1 tank of gas.
Don't think about that too much, because Daly is taking the wave around and is now pitting.
I'm not sure that's allowed. We're going to have to check on that. I always thought if you took the wave around, you actually had to stay out. But he is coming down to get service. We'll wait and see about this one. But I thought I was. I mean, Raul Meza, I think you're absolutely right, was the free pass car. So how is a wave around machine being able to take service?
That I'm not sure. It's not going to benefit him in the immediate. He's still very severely damaged. He's just now coming back on the racetrack, but he's going to be almost an entire lap behind the leaders as they're about ready to get onto the front stretch to put us under the restart, and he's just now going through the S's, so he's going to be quite a ways back from this field. So combined with a damaged car, not sure what the strategy behind that one was, but we're back to green. Powell with another good restart, or a good restart, the first restart. Tellier is now in second. It was a lightning fast stop for the 3 car, who started the day in second, ended up spinning around on lap 2, and now finds himself back within striking distance. So this battle for the lead could ramp up as now Scott and King battle. Oh, Scott! I think King has actually gotten a little bit loose in the S's, and now he's going to fall back into the clutches of everybody as they're passing him on the outside line.
Lost a lot of ground, a lot of momentum there through one of the fastest parts of the track. The uphill S's heading down here towards the chicane, dropping from 3rd all the way back to 6th, and double wide behind him there with Durand and Tufts battling side by side through the chicane for 7th. Give it the advantage to the 39.
And that was a interesting opening lap. As now we're back under single file condition. No one really trying to push the issue, as I'm kind of glad that they're not, because a lot of these drivers are, they're a little bit damaged. They don't want to push their stuff too much. We still got a long way to go, only on lap 19 out of 55. So the end of the race is still very far away, and don't want to use up your stuff too early on. The 9 is around. in turn one again. He was quite a ways back, and now he's gone around again. He didn't quite get to the front of the field or the tail of the field under the pace lap. So now he's just gotten back going the right direction, and that 9 is not looking in the best of ways at the moment.
Absolutely not. David Castelli right now 3 laps down in the 15th position. We saw just moments ago on pit road the 28 of Nathan Hall. I think he might have been involved in something there, initially going back green on that restart as the whole front end of that car is gone. And up front, much like it was in the first stage, it is go time for Garrett Powell. He opens up a nearly 6-second lead back to Philip Scott. Mike Tellier, I noticed that he did not spend any extra time on pit road after his spin, as you mentioned, back on lap 2, and his near spin in the final corner coming to the end of that stage. Only 19 seconds spent on pit road, a 4-tire pit stop, and apparently that damage is affecting him a little bit, it would seem, as he lost the second spot just a moment ago.
And he's about ready to lose third to Belmonte, because Belmonte is closing in the gap, and he's actually bringing Nick King with him. This could be a battle for third place between 3 different drivers, and if I'm a betting man, I would bet on the 12 to get around the 3 with relative eases. Both of these drivers have damage on their front ends, but comparatively to the 2, seems like the 12 has got less than the 3. It's going to be a pretty short-lived battle, although I say that, and it seems like that Tellier has got some speed down the straights. It's just when you get into the turns, it seems like that 3 kind of slows down. As you see through the bus stop, it was all the 12. He lost a lot of ground going up through the S's, and now he's been able to make it back up. It's through the carousel. That 12 is now back onto the rear of the 3, trying to make the pass into the final 2 turns. I don't know if he's got a big enough run and able to do it on this lap, but you can be for sure that the next lap we should see these 2 duke it out for that third place position. As while these 2 battle, Scott is kind of pulling away, and we continue to battle for the third place position.
Well, not only is he pulling away, but he is pulling away in style. I mean, the 2 fastest cars on the track right now hitting 110s are second place Philip Scott and Justin Belmonte. Garrett Powell is running lap times in the low 1 minute 9 second bracket. I mean, it's literally no contest right now in who is the fastest on track.
No, not at all. Not at all. Powell and Scott right now have the 2 fastest on track at the moment, as Powell 7.3 second advantage. Seth, it's been a nice race, I gotta say. Even though we've had a lot of action, it's been it's been a competitive race, and you know, I love road course racing, and we're getting a really good one out of this one. As so far we've seen one driver been able to get out in front and just kind of run his race, do what he needs to do, and he's doing it in a dominating fashion. We got a battle between a lot of drivers who have some damage, but they're still muscling their cars around the track like there's nothing on it, and still trying to salvage the best finish that they possibly can, given the circumstances they're in. And this is proper Watkins Glen racing that we're seeing.
It definitely is. I think there's a lot of drivers that had this race circled early on their calendar that maybe don't consider themselves much of road course racers, and they just came into this one with the mentality of survive and move on to next week. We've got Mike Tellier and Garrett Powell. Those 2 came in separated by 1 point in the standings. 2 wins for Tellier, 1 for Garrett Powell. So obviously Garrett's trying to even the score here at 2 apiece going to next week. Some other drivers, though, that, have been running into some problems here that, at least for the moment, seem to be salvaging something. You've got Dylan Stipe, who came into this race in the 5th position in points. He's currently in 6th. Tristan Mayer, who came in 4th in points, rides in the 7th position. And Brandon King has actually faded back to 10th place, but he was up inside of the top 5 for a good portion of this race, 3rd in points. So some of these guys, I think, very much so coming into this race, just trying to at least keep their car in one piece, finish all the laps, finish on the lead lap, and then recover next week when we finally get to another speedway at Dover.
Yeah, and Dover's going to be another close quarter race that, these drivers are going to be so close to each other. Dover's a fast track. It's small, it's compact, but I always associate it as the mile-long Bristol. It's set up very similar. There's walls on either side of the racetrack. You just feel claustrophobic sometimes going around that track. And with the speeds that come with the high banks there, They call it the Monster Mile for a good reason, and these drivers, yeah, they're looking forward to that. But at the same time, that's going to be another hard race that you're going to have to get through, especially with the level of competition that these drivers have. And it might not be all cut and dry for a lot of these drivers who maybe not find themselves in the top running of the point standings, but still very much in contention. The season's still early. We've got a long way to go in this season. Dover, the next three races are going to be all at different types of racetracks as well. You have Dover coming up, which is a mile long, kind of just an oval, and then you have Kansas, the mile-and-a-half D-shaped oval, and then you have Michigan, a 2-mile oval, which is going to throw a lot of these, a lot of curveballs into how these drivers race. It's a nice wide track, a nice fast track, and then we go back to another road course at Road America. A nice mixed bag for these drivers the next the next four races, I should say.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, with the dominance we're seeing right now out of Garrett Powell today at Watkins Glen, if when we get to Road America and then 2 weeks after that, on November 22nd, they go to the Roval. Those are the only 3 road courses they run here during the course of this season. You have to wonder if Garrett Powell is easily going to be the one at the top of the list of those to watch to maybe be the one to go to victory lane, maybe sweep all 3 of the road course races this season.
And yeah, if this race is any indication of that, then absolutely, I'm a firm believer that might be the case, as he's opened up now a 12.5-second lead back to Scott, who is still fending off the 3 who is actually caught up to him. This battle for second place is now heating up, as it was a battle for third, as Tellier has gotten away from Belmonte at the moment. He's opened up about a 1.5-second gap, but Tellier is actually caught up to Scott. And if there's any damage on the 3, oh, you wouldn't know it as the 12 goes around. So Belmonte goes around at the exit of turn 9.
And as that car was in reverse, it backed into the sand trap, which is going to lose him at least a few spots inside of the top 5. Going to come back out in front, just in front of 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's David Duran, Caden Tufts, and Brandon King. And why this is important right now is because these are spots, they're just inside of the top 10, as we're only about 4 laps away from that second caution coming out to end stage 2.
Yeah, it's a big moment for the 12. The good news is, though, he didn't hit anything. No damage or no extra damage on that 12 car. Kept it off the wall. So if he can get to the end of this stage, come down, get some fresh tires, which you got to be thinking are kind of screaming at the moment, is those rear tires, he basically just full throttle to try not to hit the inside retaining wall as he looped it around. And now he's going in a big battle between him and Durand. It's going to be into the bus stop. Looks like that Durand might have a run. Oh, the slow car's getting in the way, though. He's got to get around as he goes off into the grass. Going to go through the bus stop, through the grass, cuts the course to avoid the slower traffic, and he's going to give up that time that he gained on that cutting the course, even though it was an avoidance, and that's going to give the position to the 14, or the 24 rather, of Durand. Now here comes Tufts, King, and Mayer, a 5-way battle between for this 6th place position.
Maybe one of the worst places to encounter a slow lap machine going there into the bus stop. And the one thing I'd also be a little bit worried about there for that 12 of Belmonte, we saw that when he went through the grass exiting out of the chicane, coming back onto the racing surface, that car jumped into the air from the grass to asphalt transition. Would that be causing any front suspension problems for later on, would you think?
I would be surprised if that is not the case. That these cars are not designed to take hits like that, especially the suspension. The suspension can take a beating on the stock cars. These cars are built so ruggedly that you can throw them around a little bit, but you start doing stuff like that, first time, okay, you might get away with it. Second time, you're pushing your luck. If he does it 3 times, something's going to get knocked loose. I think he might be okay at the moment. That car might not be 100%. Anymore. It wasn't 100% to begin with, but now the suspension might not be 100%, as he's taken a shot into the nose at some point in this race. And, something like that's definitely not going to help his efforts, but it might not destroy his efforts this early on, I should say, as the battle for that position still heated up, as the battle for second place has kind of spread out a bit, as it's now about a 2-second gap between the 8 and the 3, kind of just riding around hoping the stage ends. Stipe finds himself in no man's land, about 6 seconds behind third place, and about 7 seconds ahead of Nick King. So kind of running all by himself. And then you get into that Hornet's Nest where the 24 has a bit of a loose moment coming out of turn 1. It's actually going to get a little bit tail squirrely in front of the 12, and these two continue to battle. It's going to be another dogfight into the bus stop.
And just to show the kind of pace that Garrett Powell is putting down, this battle we are watching between Duran and Belmonte is for the 6th position, but these drivers are nearly half a lap down as they're heading into the chicane right now. The race leader just crossed the start-finish line.
And this is something that we see typically in endurance racing. With a car that has a big lead, the cars in endurance racing are not all created equal, and sometimes you get leaders that get massive leads and they have a half a lap lead over these other competitors, so that's kind of normal for endurance racing. But in these stock cars, this is something that, you know, it's an achievement. All these cars are the same power output, pretty much the same setup. A lot of differences can be made with these cars as it is an open setup league. However, as far as power output and aerodynamics, it's all the same. So to have a half a lap lead this stage in the race, and these are staged races, so this isn't like it's been a half a lap lead over the course of 29 laps. It's a half a lap lead over the course of not only the 29 laps, but you've had a yellow come out for the end of the stages. Now we're going to go side by side in the S's between the 24 and the 12. That could have been ended very badly as the 12 had a run, but got off the throttle just in the nick of time to avoid hitting the 24.
4 races into the season, and we're about to have something happen for the very first time. If Garrett Powell can close out the deal here for this next lap and a half, we are about to have a driver win both stages of a race. As so far this season, our 2-stage races, oh my goodness, there's some near moments there out of the chicane. Is on the receiving end of that was Brandon King in the 89. But we're about to have a driver sweep the stages. That hasn't been done yet this season.
Yeah, the first driver to do that, and you got to think that's going to give him huge momentum going next week into Dover, saying that, yeah, I got all the points that I could have in the stages, and now all he has to do is win the thing. If he can do that, take both stages and the overall win, then he's going to get the maximum amount of points you can possibly get going into this race, and he's led every lap too, so he's going to get the lap leading bonus if he crosses halfway leading all these laps. So, you know, getting the max, he's actually already crossed halfway, so he's got the lap leading bonus. He's going to get the stage win bonus. He's got the last stage win bonus. If he can win this race, he's got 3 bonus points, 4 bonus points on top of the amount, if he wins this race, getting all the points that he can. So a huge advantage going to
And more importantly, racking up playoff points. There's the caution, racing back to the stage end. Garrett Powell has actually just crossed the line to pick up the stage. And also, if you consider the fact that, you know, we were talking about Powell versus Tellier coming to this one, well, Powell has swept both of the stages so far. Mike Tellier has finished 4th and 5th in the respective stages, so huge points advantage there as far as the overall standings to the driver of the 87.
Something happened to Tellier then, because he was running 3rd at the lap before, so he's actually had a moment where he's lost 2 positions.
And now racing back here to the start-finish line. I believe it's actually frozen field at this point. So it'll be Powell with the stage win, followed by Philip Scott. Back-to-back seconds in the stages for Philip Scott, so a very good points day for him. Dylan Stipe, I believe, is going to have back-to-back 3rd places here in the 2 stages, followed by Nick King in 4th, Mike Tellier 5th. Then it'll be Belmonte, Duran, Tufts, Mayer, and Brandon King, the top 10. Looks like the 15 of Travis Daly went a lap down there under this last run. He would be the recipient of the free pass. We'll have 12 cars on the lead lap when we go back green. And I did take the opportunity to kind of go back, look through the rule book here for the series, and was not really able to find anything that said that if you take the waiver round, you can't come to pit road. So that might be something that they do here in this league that I wasn't aware of, and hence why the 15 did what he did. And he's at least now going to get back on the lead lap on the same sequence as all the rest of the race leaders.
That was an interesting call, too. I didn't know that was a thing you could do in any of these Cup Series. So definitely a monkey wrench to throw into the mix. And I got to say, looking back on it, that was pretty smart on the part of the 15. Able to get on the lead lap. We went another lap down, but now we'll get the free pass. So things are looking up for that team, and we might be able to see him get at least maybe get to the mid through the field and maybe get into the top 10 later on as all the cars come down pit road. Do you dare say, can these cars make it on fuel to the end of the race?
I'm gonna say no because, as I stated, we were going to kind of use the 15 as a little bit of a guinea pig on whether or not drivers could make it anywhere from 23 to 25 laps on fuel. He came to pit road the following lap. That said to me, he knew that he was probably going to have to make a green flag pit stop there under that last green flag run. I honestly think we're going to be going back green somewhere. I think lap 34. That's going to give us 21 laps. The furthest these drivers have gone on fuel so far is 15 laps. Unless there's a lot of saving that can take place here, which I don't think that's possible, I think we're going to be seeing these drivers on pit lane during this last run. The question is, though, if you're somebody like Garrett Powell, do you maybe come to pit road as soon as that fuel window opens, or do you stretch it as far as possible, come down pit road, and as you had mentioned earlier, take on that least amount of possible fuel so that way it's a much quicker pit stop and keep as much of the track position as you can?
I would dare say that that would be the case. It wouldn't be abnormal. Although looking at the lap counter at the moment, when we go back green, we're going to be on lap 34 of 55, putting us about 21 laps to the finish of the race. Now, they've been able to go 17. If, say, Powell can get out front, get a big lead, and maybe back off a little bit, save a little bit of fuel, he might be able to stretch it. It'll be a couple laps short, I would think, if we're using the 15 as the guinea pig, like you mentioned. He came down pit road. Although I don't know, I'm going to be the one to throw this out. Maybe he didn't have to pit, but he knew he was going to have to pit very soon after we went back to green. So he opted to come down pit road while everyone was still into yellow in order to not lose too many, fall down the order too far. So do you think that possibly he could have gone a little bit longer and we just don't know about it because he opted to come down pit road? Or do you think it really was up to that point? I know you said that it was, but with that thought, how does that, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm not necessarily certain if his reasoning for coming to pit road at that point was to get the fuel as much so as it was to get the tires. Because let's remember, if he had taken the wave around and not come down pit road, he would have been at about a 17 lap deficit on his Goodyears as to everybody else around him. That is lead lap and lap machines alike. So I think maybe just for the fact that we've seen these drivers, especially in the first stage, slipping and sliding around, fighting for rear grip, he came down pit road, especially to make sure he had the most maximum grip underneath him with the 4 fresh tires.
That's true, and these tires have fallen off quite a bit as we see the runs go on. A lot of these drivers get a little bit looser as the run progresses, and that makes for some great racing. But you got to think that these drivers, they don't want to be out there racing like they're on ice skates for the entire duration of a stint. They want to have some grip, and with the combination of the high temps, the tire wear, it gets intense. As the end of this stage could prove to be one of the more epic ones, as we're about ready to set these drivers to go again. The lights are off on the safety car once again. This time, though, our top 5 looks a bit different. We have Powell still the leader, but now Nick King finds himself in second. Then you have Justin Belmonte in the 3rd spot. Then you have Caden Tufts and David Durand to make up the top 5. That's a bit of a shakeup from when the stage ended.
Well, it is a bit of a shakeup, but there's a very good reason for it. A little bit of sneakery going on, but cannot avoid our camera crew, Mike Tellier. Apparently, he may think these drivers cannot make it on fuel. He just came to pit road on that 1 lap to green and topped off the fuel tank. So might have a slight advantage here if these drivers are going to be really close on whether they can make it this entire 3rd stage on fuel or not.
And that might be the hat trick that he needed to maybe get this win. If that's the case, then that might be the move of the race. We'll have to wait and see what happens. He's also hanging back. He's not too thrilled to get up to these drivers at the moment because he might be expecting a couple of dive bombs on this restart. The Porsche safety car is going to come off onto pit road. We're back under green. Powell with another good jump, but now it's side by side for second place between Belmonte and King as we rocket down into turn 1 again, and it looks like we're going to get through okay. It's the 43 and the 12 kind of go next to each other. The 24 gets through okay. Everyone looks like they're going to get through the first turn, now up through the S's. What can these drivers do as we see that Tufts and Durand are in a battle, and now Scott and Brandon King are going to be in a battle. Pretty much battles all over the racetrack on the start of stage 3.
A number of drivers have had issues here in the first 2 stages, but the stage cautions have been there to come to the rescue. Now the likelihood is if you run into an incident, there's going to be no caution, no full course yellow to be able to help you recover again. So this is where drivers are going to have to be conservatively aggressive, if that even makes sense. They're going to have to make sure if there's a position ahead that they can take, they've got to take it. But at the same time, they cannot make a mistake. They cannot go off course. They cannot tear up their race car because more than likely that is a good finish gone.
This is where you... Oh, the 12 is around. So it looks like that Belmonte through turn 9 spun it around. Oh, he gets nailed.
Got hit by the 38 of Grieri and the 28 of Nathan Hall.
Man, that was a shot to the passenger side door of the 12, and that's going to be a lot of damage. I think that there's some smoke coming from the 12. That might be terminal in a couple of laps. He's definitely not going to be up to speed. You got to think there's a whole lot wrong with that car. Not just him, but Grieri in the 38, who came in and almost, I think he got away with it for the most part. He slowed up quite a bit, but still a hard shot to the side of the 12, and that's going to be devastating for him. He was running up in the top 5.
And he was up in the top 10 for both of the stages. Is the 39 of Caden Tufts. Way wide there. The chicane. Oh my goodness. Car jumps up into the air. Travis Pastrana be proud of that jump.
What a reference. And this is not Rallycross, Tufts. That was incredible, though. He was able to save it, though. And he hasn't lost that many spots. He's only fallen back to 6. So give him credit where credit's due. He's able to save that 39. He's still competitive, although he's gotten a little bump from the 20 going down into the final turn. That 39 might still have some speed. He's going to claw his way back up. He's got to make sure there's no suspension damage on the 39, but at the moment, looks okay for him.
Look at this battle behind him for 7th place. Hoodless Dylan Stipe and a crunched up Pennzoil Chevrolet of Tristan Mayer. These 2 guys have been through the wars, but they're still soldiering on, trying to salvage top 10 runs here today.
Double wide through the S's going up the hill. Looks like they're going to go to 2 wide, or single file, my bad, is now it looks like the 3 of Tellier is going to have the advantage. And there's 3 wide in front!
No, that's Brandon King into the wall in the S's. Hits the right side guardrail as well. Keeps it going. Everyone avoids somehow.
That was incredible. And that happened right in front of the 3 who's trying to make his way back up to the field. So that's a couple positions that's been handed to him. Man, that could have ended in disaster as he ping-balled off both of the guardrails. No one hit him. He only hit the guardrails. So, man, got to give credit to the other drivers for spatial awareness. They were able to get through that wreck. No harm, no foul to any others, and we continue. Scary moment going down.
24 spins it around there in the final corner. That car just wheel hopped heading into that final right-hander. David Duran gonna drop from 3rd all the way back to about the 8th position, and also the 43. Nick King, who was running in 2nd place, spun off the final turn.
What a sequence of events that's happened on lap 36. That was incredible. We don't even... What happened, Seth?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Philip Scott just had deja vu from stage 1. He was running in the 4th position back in stage 1. Drivers ahead of him ran into some issues. He inherited 2nd place. It just happened again for him because he was back in 5th with the 43 and the 24 going around in front of him. He's back up in the runner-up spot again.
And don't look now, but here comes the 3 on the 39. This is a battle for the 3rd place position. That 3 of Tellier has come up through the field in a position he needs to be in, but don't look now either. Here comes Tristan Mayer. He wants to throw his name in the hat for the 3rd place position. And behind him, you have Dylan Stipe, the hoodless Dylan Stipe, who is trying to catch these 3. This is incredible racing in the late stages of the race. You kind of have to be this aggressive if you want to get to the front.
Now, again, we have to remember, though, the question mark of whether these drivers are good to make it the rest of this race on fuel. the 87 of Garrett Powell, with everything that's been happening from second place on back, enjoying nearly a 14-second gap. You mentioned the fact, maybe 3 to 4 laps short on fuel as Caden Tufts almost loses it there in turn 1. Is there any particular place here on the track that Garrett Powell can slow his pace, clutch into a corner, and be able to save that much fuel in 18 laps?
Well, there's plenty of places. You can do it in turn 1, you can do it into the bus stop, you can do it into the carousel even, kind of roll it into the carousel rather than accelerate as hard into it. You could even do it in the final 2 turns if you wanted to. The benefit without a road course is there are plenty of places that you can just roll off, coast in, not use up your stuff. It's something that we do in endurance racing a lot, especially if you're driving a long stint in a longer endurance race where you want to save your hardware for later on in the race, so you kind of roll back your braking zones, coast it in to the turns rather than going full throttle and then braking at the very last moment. So if Powell can start doing that, I'm confident he can save at least a lap's worth of fuel in the last bit of the race. We don't know if that will be enough, but he'll certainly make his efforts better, as he's got a big enough lead to do it. He's kind of hovering around the 14-second mark, and I think he might be in fuel-saving mode. He hasn't really gone past the 14-second mark. As I say that, he actually jumps to 14 and a half, so it's a bit of off and on between how big that gap is between Scott and Powell, but there's plenty of places where you could do it here.
Justin Belmonte, who we saw went around there out of the final corner there at the initial start of this third stage, has now brought his number 12 to pit road. We were going to go to a replay and check back because I thought that Brandon King in the 89 might have run into another issue after slapping both steel guardrails through the S's, but apparently he also brought his 89 to pit road under his own power. Those two drivers getting extensive repairs done to their Chevrolet Camaros, currently in 11th and 12th positions.
Yeah, that's 11 and 12 back there. They're kind of in no man's land at this point in the races. Both on pit road. They haven't lost 11th and 12th yet. They are still waiting to be passed by Nathan Hall, Daly, and Woodruff, who are still on the racetrack. Blaine Woodruff is probably the poorliest of all these cars. Has not really had the best of race at all, running at 15th place. 11 laps down to the leaders, about 4 laps down to Travis Daly, who is 2 laps down to Nathan Hall, who is on the same lap as Brandon King. So Brandon King and Belmonte might be passed by Hall in a couple of laps' time. Actually, I say that, and now here comes Belmonte onto the racetrack. So didn't lose any positions, still going to come out in 11th, and with the fact that he's got about a lap lead over Brandon King, that's a big advantage for him, as he's not going to lose that 11th place immediately. If not, if he can keep the car going forward, then he might be able to keep the 11th. I don't think that we'll see him in the top 10 anytime soon, unless these drivers get really racy and take each other out.
Garrett Powell closing in on 15 laps to go. Best battle on track right now is third back to sixth. That's Tellier, Tufts, Mayer, and Stipe. It was a 3-car battle for fourth, but Tellier a couple of laps ago had a near moment somewhere between turn 7 and 8 rather, and nearly went around there, and that brought fourth and down through sixth right to his back door.
Indeed it did. And the battle between these drivers, I think it's going to be this level of aggression throughout the rest of the race between these four. Oh, the 3 and the 39 go around.
Tufts is going to save it as he brings it back out on track, but for Tellier, facing 90 degrees the wrong way towards the inside wall, has to refire the car, and boy, just a tough day gets even tougher for the guy who came into this race second in the point standings. The points leader.
Yeah, he's not going to be the points leader at the end of this race. That much we do know, as he has had severe hardships, as you mentioned. Now falls back to the 8th position. And like you said before that happened, that was a big battle about ready to brew between those drivers. It was about, like you said, about third through sixth rather, that caught up to him. So that battle kind of goes away. Tristan Mayer finds himself in the 3rd place position after everything that he's gone through this race. We saw him running towards the back as he loses it out of the turn 9. As he's in the grass, he saves it, but now that's going to bring the 39 and the 20 back to him. And we got to remember, that 20 is running without a hood. So the aerodynamics have been severely compromised on that 20 car, still keeping up with these guys within contention for a top 3.
And Dylan Stipe, wow, again the 39, way wide there. Oh, gracious, almost cuts the nose of, or at least what's left of the nose of Dylan Stipe there coming off of turn 1.
That was a bit aggressive re-entry. Is he still having problems going up the S's? That 39 is not looking the best of ways as he's in the grass, and he's trying to hold on to him, and he does. Oh man, that could have been severe damage going to the 39 if he made contact with the guardrail. As he's going to get passed by the 20. Still, there must be something wrong with the 39. That car does not look like it's sound in the suspension as he's trying to find some grip around this racetrack. Not been able to do it thus far, but you got to think that that shot that he took coming out of turn 1 a lap ago when he kind of spun around, tried to save it, you got to think that something might have gotten knocked loose as he's not having a very good couple of laps so far.
Well, I think it goes back to that moment we saw him have over in the chicane. I think he thinks he's driving a rallycross car. I mean, he's running the full extent of the runoff there in turn 1. He's running the edge of the grass through the S's. I think he wants to go off-roading.
Man, give him some off-road tires. Let's see what he can do. I'd be excited to watch him the way he's driving. He looks like he can do it. To your point, though, when he made that off-track going through the bus stop, when he went got airborne, that might have knocked something loose, and it's now just starting to rear its ugly head as that car, again, does not look in the best of ways as he's losing time to Stipe, and he's actually going to get run down by Durand if he keeps up this pace, and Durand's not in the best of ways either. So, the 43, I think, is on pit road. We're seeing on the relative. Is that true? That is true.
And Nick King was running back around the 8th position. Remember, he had that moment out of the final corner. I don't think he necessarily really hit anything, or if he did hit anything, he didn't hit it hard. This looks like it could be a regularly scheduled stop. We'll see how long he spends in his pit stall because the fuel window could be open now for these drivers to make their final pit stop of the day if they can't make it on fuel. And here comes second place Philip Scott. So yeah, this says to me these are regularly scheduled stops for the 43 and the 8.
And that shows us that they couldn't go the full distance, or if they could, they really didn't want to as they're coming down pit road. It's actually earlier than we would have seen them if they tried to go to the end of a stage. So kind of splitting the stage in half, putting some fresh rubber on now, filling it full of fuel as the 8 car is doing at the moment. And he will get 4 tires and be down in the way momentarily. That is, believe that's Dylan Stipe, who's also come down pit road.
Add the 39 of Caden Tufts to the list of drivers that came down this lap. And now we're going to have to see about this 87 of Garrett Powell with the fact that, as you alluded to, pretty much a lot of these drivers here that are coming to pit road, splitting this final third stage in half. We still don't necessarily know the full extent of how far these drivers can go on what they have in the tank, the 60% fuel capacity, as Garrett Powell continues to show the way over Tristan Mayer and David Durand. Now your top 3 closing in on 10 laps to go. We're going to be back momentarily here as the green flag pit stops, the final green flag pit stops of the day, are taking place in the closing stages at Watkins Glen. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. You won't miss a thing as you're watching the Clutch Drop Racing Cup Series at Watkins Glen. We're going to go FRN side by side.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the Veterans of Foreign Wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Most everyone involved in sim racing always wants that edge or even make the experience a little bit better, or in this case, a little bit more in-depth. Enter iRacing iFlag. iFlag is a simulation signal box with software designed by Peter Vostro. When you are behind the wheel in iRacing, your eyes are looking down the track or maybe even in the rear or side view mirrors. You may not notice or even hear when the caution comes out, when your car is damaged, or if you get black flagged, or even notice the car beside you. Yes, iFlag will point out the signs and tell you where that car is. It just makes iRacing more real and can help you become a better driver. We also offer iRacing iFlag Digital Pit Box. This small box is a great addition to any sim rig. With only 3.5 inches wide, it gives you all the information you need, including how many laps completed, how much fuel you will need to finish, what lap you need to pit on, laps so your fuel is empty, as well as weather and track conditions. It also switches when you come down pit road for more information, including what lap you're pitting under, tire wear, laps on tires, fuel average, and much, much more. To see more info, check us out today at iracingiflag.com.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also
We welcome you back here to race 4 of the Clutch Drop Racing Cup Series at Watkins Glen. Less than 10 laps to go. It's been a dominating performance by Garrett Powell, who has already made his final pit stop of the day, and Anthony didn't even lose the race lead. He had that much of an advantage.
And now that he is good to go on fuel and tires, he's going to extend the lead, as it's now about 21 seconds back to Philip Scott, who has been the second most consistent driver of today's races. He got second place out of the misfortune of the 3 car rather, and has basically never looked back. He's been running in the second place position pretty much all race long, not been able to catch our leader, but been able to extend his gap to third place. So I think if everything goes smoothly for him, this is where he'll be finishing the night out, as a good run for him. And Tristan Mayer finds himself in a very interesting position. He kind of inherited third place off of what was about to be a four-way battle for third. Ended up being 2 cars looping it around in turn 1. Now he inherited the lead from 5th place, or I'm sorry, inherited third place from 5th place, and has never looked back, although Stipe is only 2.5 seconds back, trying to close the gap, but running out of time to do so.
Oh, Caden Tufts completely blew the chicane. He's going through the section there where a driver cannot make it, and there is a time penalty with that where he has to give up some time, and now he makes contact, drifts it there through the carousel, and there goes Tillier.
And while the 39 saved it, Tillier did not, actually on the full course section of the racetrack, trying to find his way back to our configuration, as that car not wanting to turn the direction he wants to. He actually got to go in the right way, trying to get back on the course, and he will do so. But wow, the bad luck for Tillier continues. He came in the points leader, albeit only by 1 point, but I think it's safe to say now he's going to fall down way down the order, as at the 7th place right now. Now Meza is right behind him. I don't think when he qualified that he was expecting to be 7th place, 1 lap down to the leader, battling for the 7th place position with Meza, who spun around earlier in the race and is now caught back up to this pack. And for Meza, this is great. You can get another spot and kind of stop the bleeding a little bit for that 37 team.
Well, when you consider the way that Raul Meza's race started, getting early damage without even crossing the start-finish line when the green flag waved to begin this race, but you saw that one car go flying by Mike Tellier and came back on course. That was race leader Garrett Powell. Tellier is now the first car one lap down, so talk about the salt in the wounds as it's been Powell and Tellier for the first 3 races this season. And I was going to mention before Mike Tellier had his issue, you know, there are drivers that came into this race inside of the top 5 in points, but at least they're going to salvage some decent finishes despite having some battle scars here. Tristan Mayer, 4th in points, looks like he is right now en route for a 3rd place run. Dylan Stipe, who came in 5th in points, right now running 4th. And I was going to put Mike Tellier in that category as well, despite all the issues he's had. He was in 5th at the time before he and Caden Tufts made that contact, but just like that, he's now a lap down in 7th. So that entirely changed in the matter of about 30 seconds.
Indeed, it did, and I don't think he'll lose 2nd place in the points, though, going to Dover. I think he has a big enough lead over 3rd place in the standings that he might hold on to it going into Dover. However, the lead between him and Powell is going to be much larger than it is going into our race then. And in case you're just joining us, it's been a wild race for tonight's running at Watkins Glen. The 4th race of the season. It's been not disappointing in the least. We've seen action top to bottom. Garrett Powell has led almost every lap. I believe he has led every lap of this race, so he's going to get the lap-led bonus. He's going to get the 2-stage wins, and if all goes smoothly for this 87 team, he will get the overall win as well. So maximum points at the grass for him. Other drivers having issues. We just mentioned that Tellier has had a bit of an off day tonight. Not really the run he was hoping for, but other drivers in the point standings could capitalize on his misfortune. As we're looking down the order, people like Brandon King, Tristan Mayer, and Dylan Stipe, the top 5 in the point standings, so that's 3rd through 5th in the point standings, they are looking to capitalize, and I would dare say that although Tellier won't lose 2nd place in the points at the end of this race, that Brandon King will be close, if not knocking on the door by the time we get to Dover. Dover's our next race on the season. And after that, we go to a plethora of tracks, including Kansas, Michigan, back to road course racing at Road America, and then Indianapolis, the midway point through the season. And Seth, we're getting to the closing stages of this race. Any takeaways you have as we close up this race here tonight?
Yeah, a lot of drivers going to be putting in practice laps when they get to Road America, because you brought up the fact, you know, the speed that we saw in qualifying out of Mike Tellier. It was looking like it was going to be the 87 and the 3 battling it out here today, and a lot of corners have been trouble for Tellier, mostly turn 1, a lot of the flatter corners, a lot of the right-handers. And so I think for a lot of these drivers, they kind of expected, you know, we can come out here to Watkins Glen, we can practice our setup, and if it feels good, it feels good. I think that some of these drivers might be looking at their setups when they get to Road America and saying, is this really what I think I want to have underneath me? Is this what I'm going to have for the longest? Is this what I want to have for the short run? Just because I think a lot of drivers, with the conditions of Watkins Glen here today and the way that their setups adapted to it, some for the good, some for the bad, I think they're going to be a little bit more leery about what they've got underneath them when we get to our second road course stop.
And Road America it's a similar track in the sense that it's a lot of straights with heavy braking zones. However, it's much longer than Watkins Glen is in this configuration, and those drivers are going to have to deal with that, a much longer lap. Also, much higher speeds, as the longest straights at Road America are pretty much like the straights at Talladega or Daytona on the backstretch, where it's a long straight going into a heavy braking zone. An over 4-mile road course in Wisconsin. Going to be a battle of attrition again for these drivers, and I think you can carry some of your setup over from this race as the track surface are similar, although this track has got considerably more banking in some of the turns than at Road America, and Road America has much more elevation changes than in this race. Also, the dreaded carousel at Road America, where you think you can take it flat, but you really can't.
I mean, this is incredible, the pace that Garrett Powell's been putting on. He has just put the 5th place car of David Durand a lap down, so we could have as few as 4 cars on the lead lap at the conclusion of this race. And the pace he's setting is so fast as Durand has a moment there out of turn 1. Saves it, though, as he almost clobbered the tire barriers there on the inside of the right-hander. Going to be able to keep it underneath him, though, but that brings Caden Tufts to his back bumper for 5th. hopefully I can get this out real quickly here as we're getting to the end of this race. But you may have noticed up in the top left of our ticker, we are supporting Breast Cancer Awareness Month here during the month of October, and we are also partnering with the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, having a fundraiser here during the entire month of October. If you'd like to help us out here by contributing, we do have the donation link down in the description below, and we'll have it running the entirety of this month, just doing what little we can here for a great cause.
Indeed, it is a great cause, and every October it's special when we get to this stage in the year where, you know, we raise awareness and a lot of fundraisers happen, and we're very proud to be one of them this year as FRN goes pink for the entire month of October. White flag in the air. Garrett Powell has taken it, and if nothing goes wrong for him, he's got a clear racetrack in front of him. So I think it's going to be a pretty clean lap all the way to the finish of this race. A dominating performance from the 87 team. And Seth, I want to welcome you to endurance racing because this kind of lead is normal for me.
Yeah, I mean, the field really spread out. You've got some drivers that have been able to be the class of the field. Garrett Powell's been out in front all night. Philip Scott has been second place pretty much all night. The two guys, though, I think really are lucking into some positions here that maybe they wouldn't have been in had we not had the help of those two-stage cautions. Tristan Mayer going to get third and Dylan Stipe in fourth if things don't change here. But it's really going to be interesting to watch the gap heading into next week around that second position, because I think Tristan Mayer is going to close up on Mike Tellier for that second position, and I think it's also going to be close for around the fourth position based on the fact third in points Brandon King is currently 8 laps down in 13th, and you've got Dylan Stipe, who was 5th in points, running inside of the top 5. But off the final turn, Garrett Powell's going to get his second win of the season. He's going to take the checkered flag here tonight at the Glen.
A flawless race top to bottom for the 87 team, and he is going to get a huge advantage going into Dover in the points and wins tonight with a huge advantage over second place Philip Scott, who is just now coming through the second or the last two turns. And for Philip Scott, this is exactly what he needed to. Not doing too particularly well in the points at this moment, but coming out of Watkins Glen, he's going to have some momentum heading into Dover. Second place for the 8 team, and Tristan Mayer, who inherited third place and never looked back, as he's going to get a third place position finish here. A great run for that 17 team as well.
I mean, Garrett Powell, so far ahead, he actually for a brief moment broke our ticker because it didn't have him registered as the race leader. It took Philip Scott crossing the line in second to actually have our ticker say that the 87 is the official winner of this race.
That's special when you can break the broadcast ticker with how big your lead is. That's incredible that he's able to do that, as he's coming around to burn it down for the fans. And man, when you think about dominance and setting the tone for the rest of the season early in a race, this is the place to do it at. You've gone through 4 races. This is one of the more niche tracks on the season. Not a whole lot of them. If you've been able to establish your dominance at this track, then the next 3 tracks or the next 2 tracks that you go to of this type should be just as easy for you as you got Road America, and I believe that would be the Roval coming up later on the season. But as Garrett Powell burns it down here in Watkins Glen, the fans on their feet watching the 87 for I believe this is his second win of the season? Or
it is his second win, and I think this is a statement win as well, because in the first 4 races, Daytona, it was Mike Tellier. The following week at Phoenix, it was Garrett Powell. Last week at Las Vegas, it was Tellier again, and Garrett Powell now here tonight evens the score at 2. Heading into that really technical track of Dover next week, I think that the statement said right here is, okay, Mike Tellier, your move.
Anything you can do, I can do better. And he's proven that at this track type, he is the king as he takes a backwards lap around this track in celebration of his victory. And, you know, it's going to be a back and forth between these two, I feel, throughout the rest of the season. As, you know, as you said, I win, you win. I win, you win again. And I kind of want this to keep going, as we can see these two all the way to the end of the season battling it out. And it's going to make the points situation interesting, especially when we get to the playoffs, because when the points reset, the pressure heats up. And these drivers, it's going to be a test to see who can and cannot crack under the pressure.
And of course, as well, though, as you just mentioned, the fact that when we get to the playoffs, it's going to be interesting because yet with Garrett Powell getting his second win and Tellier having 2 wins, Tellier is yet to pick up a stage win. Garrett Powell, after tonight, now has 3 stage wins. That is some playoff points that are going to be coming his way, as well as those 20 regular season points here for winning both stages here at the Glen. So, definitely, at least here tonight, it is advantage Garrett Powell. We'll have to see what Mike Tellier is able to do when we get to the Monster Mile next week. Let's see if we can get some of our top 3 finishers here and get their opinions of what Watkins Glen was like here tonight. And let's kick things off with third place finisher Tristan Mayer. Hey Tristan, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I got you guys.
Well, I mean, what an eventful first stage here at Watkins Glen. A lot of drivers seeming to have issues with this racetrack. I mean, what were some of the main things you guys were struggling with out there? Because it seemed like a lot of slipping and sliding around early.
I think a lot of it's just braking points. I mean, these cars, the more laps you put in, the tires fall off pretty fast, and the braking points they just get pushed so far back the older your tires get. A lot of that, and a lot of people struggled with the S's, coming out of the S's. Just you can't really be full throttle there. You got to you can almost be full throttle, but you get real loose coming out of there for sure.
You know, we saw that your race got off to an adventurous start before even taking the green flag, getting some early damage there and a stack up coming to the start of the race. But being able to work your way up to a third place finishing position despite that early damage sustained, I mean, how much of an adventure was it for you to work your way up there to the front? Or was it a case of more just being in the right place at the right time to capitalize when other drivers were having issues?
I will say it's definitely an adventure. I mean, in the beginning of the race, I felt like I was the only one that got a jump on the restart, and I had to dodge my teammate Raul actually. So that was a bit rough. I got damaged there, and then I got wrecked on lap 2 or 3. So that gave me most of my damage. I had to fix 2 minutes of optional throughout the race, and I had to really push the whole time. Towards the end, I was worried about Dylan, but everything worked out in my favor.
Now, this was a challenging race for a lot of these drivers. Next week is also going to be a challenging race as we head to the Monster Mile, and that's not exactly going to be a cut and dry race for a lot of these drivers. It's a tight track. I call it the mile version of Bristol, as everyone's kind of close together all the time. And what are you looking forward when we get to Dover? Are you looking for another great run there? And what do you think the rest of the season could play out for you?
I mean, obviously, I got some fierce competitors. Garrett Powell's fast as heck anywhere he goes. Philip Scott's really fast. Dylan, everybody's. I got some fierce competitors, so I'm hoping to have a good run at Dover. I'm going to be relieved and relaxed, kind of, that it's not a road course. I don't have to worry about breaking points and all that stuff as much. It's going to be a good change, going back to normal stuff.
Well, obviously, a great run for you here tonight, a third place finish. This is going to put you, based on the calculations we have, right up there in the hunt for second in the point standings heading into next week at Dover. So a great podium finish here at the Glen for you, Tristan, and we're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
I'd like to shout out my team, Dylan, Garrett, everybody helps making the setups for the cars. Make sure to check out TNR Racing over on YouTube. It's another great league. Yeah, that's about it. Waffle Motorsports DSM. Good race, guys.
That's Tristan Mayer. He brings it home third place tonight at the Glen. Congrats again on a great run, and we look forward to seeing what you do next week at the Concrete Mile of Dover.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.
And let's go down and get our second place finisher, Philip Scott. Hey, Philip, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, 10-4.
Well, man, I mean, a great run for you here tonight at Watkins Glen overall. You finished second in the first 2 stages. You finished second in the overall race. But we saw you actually as far back as 4th place, 5th place during some of those restarts and able to work your way up to second with drivers running into trouble in front of you. I mean, obviously you were in the right place at the right time, but just how strong was this number 8 car here tonight, being able to fend off some of those challenges from the 17 and the 20?
Yeah, it was it was pretty fun. Good win for Garrett. Yeah, I knew that there was no way I was gonna beat Garrett on pace because he last week we did a race in another league that was the Indy Road course, and I got like third, and he won by like 12 seconds or something like that. So I knew that going into this, he would probably be the man to beat. But yeah, I'm at I so what happened was I was back in traffic because so in stage two in state at the end of stage one I made a really stupid mistake and uh just wasn't thinking when the yellow was out and completely just went way too fast into the going into turn one and just locked up my brakes super bad and just went all the way to the tire barrier, and so I had like thankfully I locked it stopped enough so I didn't get too much damage, but I had a little bit of damage. And then that whole second stage, my temps were super high. They were getting close to like 290. So I noticed it, and I'm like, oh man, I need to start short shifting and coasting and cool it off. And yeah, so then I repaired the damage and got rid of some tape for stage three. That's why I was back in sixth on the restart. And then I just was like, I knew that Garrett was going to get away anyway, so I was just like biding my time and just waiting for the right moments to pass and stuff. But there was one, but I when I got into the second, it was scary because the 24 and the 43 both spun out almost simultaneously coming out of the last corner, and so I barely dodged the 24. But yeah, I was just trying to hit my marks. I've had a pretty unlucky uh season so far. I've gotten stage points and stuff, but I always find a way to wreck. I there was a like at Phoenix, I was in like top five most of the day and spun and wrecked in near the end of the race actually. Uh, just spun on my own, just careless mistake. So I'm really glad that I had a track where a road course where you cannot make any mistakes. I'm really glad uh, I could make up for my bad luck these past three races.
Well, you have managed to hit every single point that I was going to ask you, and I thank you for that because now I don't have to ask those questions anymore. Um, but I will ask this one question going into next week's race at Dover. It's another tight racetrack. I keep referring to it as the kind of the Bristol, but it's a mile long rather than a half mile. Cars are going to be close together the entire race. Not a whole lot of room to move around. Walls right up against the racing surface. What are you looking forward going into that race? And given that it's still early in the season, how are you looking for the rest of the season to turn out for you?
Well, yeah, obviously momentum's always a thing in any racing league, so I'm really glad I could get this little confidence booster. And I Dover's one of my favorite tracks on iRacing for sure. Like I think I like it even more than Bristol. It's just a lot of fun. You can really dive it into the corners and just like let the banking catch you, and that it really fits with my driving style. I tend to really like I tend to get better the longer the run at Dover. So like I really like when when my car gets like really tight and I have to like start diamonding the corners and stuff. And I in the races I've done on iRacing, um I tend to really gain time in the long run because of that. I'm usually not as good in a loose car, but I really like to play around and change lines and stuff, and Dover's the perfect track for that.
Well, Philip, obviously a great run for you overall here tonight. Your highest finish in a stage so far this season, with second place in both stages 1 and 2, and you finished with a runner-up finish here tonight as well. You mentioned the fact your struggles here to the start of the season. Hopefully, this will help get it turned around, and we're gonna let you do some shout-outs now.
Yeah. So yeah, to I think company I work for, I'm the graphic designer, creative director for nationalninjaleague.com. That's on my car. Obviously, the Dale Jr. tribute, the red colors and everything. But we're the largest Ninja Warrior league in the world, and yeah, go check us out. Yeah.
Well, that's Philip Scott. He brings it home P2 here tonight at the Glen. Congrats on a great run. Your best finish so far this season. And as Anthony alluded to, we wish you luck next week when we get to Dover.
Yeah, thank you.
And now let's go down to Victory Lane where Garrett Powell is standing by. Hey, Garrett, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, how you guys doing?
Well, what a dominating performance by you here tonight. Every single lap led by that number 87 Chevrolet. You win both the stages. You win the race. It's your second win of the season. Now, from our standpoint, it looked like you didn't put a wheel wrong. Didn't look like you were struggling with Watkins Glen at all here tonight. Was that the case, or were there a couple of corners where you maybe tiptoed through?
I'm a big fan of road courses, and especially NASCARs on road courses. It's some of the hardest racing in the schedules, and I like the tracks that are pretty difficult, and I seem to excel at the tracks that are difficult for everybody else. So I actually came out of this 0 incident points. We had a couple little bobbles, I think probably 2, maybe the whole race. So I turned 1, I kind of went wide once, but really didn't affect the time at all. And then I think stage 1, I believe, coming to the end of that, I did get a little bit sideways going to the bus stop under braking, trying to get around one of my teammates there. But other than that, honestly, it was a pretty flawless race. At least felt pretty good the whole way through.
We saw you get up there and lap the 5th place car in the closing stage of this race. Only 4 cars finished on the lead lap, including yourself. But that also meant you had to deal with an awful lot of traffic here at the Glen. How difficult was it maneuvering your way through the traffic? And was there any particular place where it really was a challenge trying to pass those cars without possibly wrecking them or yourself?
Honestly, traffic really wasn't too bad the whole race. I mean, I kind of gave myself a goal, kind of jokingly. I kind of wanted to lap the whole field. I know I'm fast at road courses, so I kind of was hoping maybe I'd get there. Obviously, we didn't get to it. The stages. I think if we didn't have stages, it could have been a possibility, but that's okay. We got up to we got around the 5th place car, which I thought was pretty cool. But honestly, traffic wasn't a huge deal for the most part. I went into this knowing that traffic was going to, be a potential issue, and I just wanted to take my time around the traffic. I knew kind of after the first stage, I probably wasn't going to have very much pressure behind me, so I could kind of take my time to get around the traffic and, make sure I'm making a safe pass, because the last thing you want to do is trying to get around somebody that's a lap down or multiple laps down. You wreck them, they wreck you, something like that, and all of a sudden you go from, leading the race, and all of a sudden you're out of the race or you got severe damage. So it just wasn't worth taking the risk. And, with not having much pressure behind me for most of the race, I knew I could, be a little bit more cautious and be careful getting around the lap traffic.
It was a clinic you put on tonight, to say the least, as getting that big lead you win every stage race tonight, and you just kind of walked away from everybody, which the setup on your car looked to be fantastic. You were able to be the most consistent driver tonight, and congratulations on your win. But we look forward to next week going into Dover, the Monster Mile. Going into next week, what's your overall goal for that race? You think you can replicate the success you had tonight? And even though that's early on in the season, how are you looking for the rest of the season to go? Because it's kind of been you and that would be just his name slipped my mind. Tellier. It's been you and Tellier duking it out for the top spot so far this season. Do you think that dogfight's going to continue throughout the rest of the season, or are you expecting some other names to pop into the top of the leaderboards?
Well, going to Dover, I actually haven't driven Dover yet before, but with it being one of those tracks that's on the higher difficulty level, I'm assuming some guys are going to have some trouble. So I'm hoping spend next week learning the track, getting fast at it, and just improving myself and add another track to the list that I know and comfortable with. But yeah, me and Mike have been going back and forth. We're teammates, so. We always have, either the same setup or very close, similar setups. Daytona is kind of one of those tracks where, anybody can win. Fortunately, we spent, pretty much all the race at the front with him and Tristan and Dylan and my other guys here at DSM and Waffle. So that was a pretty good race for us. Not really a race I expected to win at. At Daytona, anybody can win. Phoenix went into that one feeling pretty good. Kept a pretty good lead out on Mike for most of the race, other than dropping a couple stages because some guys would go in early and grab tires, or we were keeping ours to the end for that last run. in case there was a caution. And then Las Vegas, I didn't really go into Las Vegas thinking I was going to win it. A mile and a half tracks, kind of like, not as up in the air as like a Daytona where anybody can win, but it's definitely hard to put gaps on people at mile and a half tracks, unless somewhere like Kansas or something, or maybe Atlanta. But you know, wasn't expecting to win that race necessarily. I was hoping for a good finish, but unfortunately, kind of just shot myself in the foot and made a mistake late there in the race, and caused myself to get wrecked and blew the engine, which basically ended my race there. But fortunately, we came out of that only, I believe, 2 points behind Mike. And I kind of jokingly told him before this race started, because we get 3 points for getting the pole. I kind of jokingly told him, I said, "Oh, I hope I can pass you in the points, before the race actually starts." So fortunately, we were able to do that, and put a little bit bigger of a points lead on him. So I mean, that's good. But I mean, Mike's a good guy, and I love racing with him. I race with, he's one of our teammates, so I love racing against him. But yeah, it should be a pretty good race between him and I for most of the season. Tristan and Dylan, also my teammates, David Durand. They're all fast guys. I know they're fast. I know they're going to be up here, hopefully. Hopefully Tristan starts getting up here, contesting Mike, give me a little bit, maybe a better cushion at the lead. But just going to go with the rest of the season, just trying to get good finishes, be consistent. I know I'm going to be fast at the 2 road courses we got left, Road America and the Roval. So, hopefully can be fast there. And, hope those are, I wouldn't say guaranteed wins because nothing's guaranteed, but, hopefully we get good finishes there. And the rest of the season so far, hopefully get some good finishes and just stay consistent, top 5s, top 10s, just get good finishes overall to keep us in the points.
Well, here tonight, definitely racking up the playoff points with not only the victory here tonight, but sweeping the first 2 stages as well, getting your second and third stage wins so far this year. So definitely making a clear case for yourself to also be the number 1 seed when the playoff points are put together. But Garrett, we're now going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some shout outs.
Yeah, the DSM Garrett Ball Designs came out. It was pretty fast tonight, so really happy to be working with those guys, Dylan Sight Motorsports and Waffle, Philip, Tristan, Dylan, David Durand, Mike, Raul, believe, and Blaine Woodruff. Didn't want to forget him. Really glad to be working with all those guys. Working week in and week out with them is always great. And thanks to you guys for putting on a great broadcast. I love watching it back after the race, and hope you guys have a good rest of your night.
That's Garrett Powell, picks up his 2nd win of the season, a dominating performance here tonight. The Glen, congrats again on a great victory, and we look forward to seeing what you can do next week when we get to the Monster Mile of Dover.
Thanks, guys.
And so as our coverage here from Watkins Glen comes to a close, I mean, Anthony, when we were just talking there with Garrett Powell, you kind of look at the past 4 races now. You have the Super Speedway where Tellier went to victory lane. We then went to Phoenix, which a lot of road coast racers say that the way that the corners are, especially the new 1 and 2, very similar to how you would take a corner at a road course. So then you had Powell go to victory lane there. We then go Speedway racing the following week at Las Vegas. Tellier takes the checker flag there. We're back at a road course here tonight at Watkins Glen. Powell goes to victory lane. Next week, it's another Speedway. And even Powell himself says he doesn't really have that much experience there. So do we go back to advantage Tellier and this battle continue on between those two?
I would think so. Tellier has proven that he's better at the speedways thus far, just based on track record and going into the fact that you've said that he's really not that skilled at. He says he's not that skilled at Dover. Going into the Dover, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him. He's got a week to practice for it, but even then, learning a new track like that in a week is going to be a little bit difficult for anybody. Even the most skilled veterans have a little bit of struggle if they've never really raced at a track before. So Tellier might have the advantage this time around, but that's not to say that going into next week's race, the points situation for Powell and Tellier has been significantly shooken up after the end of this race, as now Powell finds himself the points leader. Tellier's going to be quite a ways back from Powell. So Powell advantage for points. However, Tellier advantage for track. Will that affect the points coming out of the next week? Or will Powell, despite not being very good, despite maybe not having a good run at Dover, possibly getting a top 5, that could keep the points battle close between those two?
Of course, for Tellier, he's still looking for his first stage win of the season. And, you talked a lot about Dover, but another thing that we heard from our 2nd place finisher, Philip Scott, that we're going to be seeing next week potentially, a lot of searching around of different lanes. Some drivers will be committed to the bottom. Some drivers will search up to the wall to be able to get that nice corner exit down the straightaway. So it sounds like we're in for a pretty good Dover race that fans will want to be tuning into next Sunday night.
Oh yeah, Dover's always a fun race to watch, no matter what league we are in, and it's one of those tracks where you can have multiple lines, and you are sure that there are going to be people trying to search for it, and again, it's a tight racetrack, a lot of banking, even the straights are heavily banked. So when an incident happens, all the cars are going to want to kind of roll down towards the inside of the racetrack. So if you're down there, you might want to run the high line the whole time. That way you might be able to avoid some, as we've seen time and time and again, where something happens, the low line is not the place to be.
Well, it may be the end to the fourth race of the season here for the Clutch Drop Cup Series, but I'll tell you what, it is just the start to a mayhem-filled week here on Flatout Racing Network. Tomorrow night, ASRA, they've got their dirt track racing. Slipstream's got their Formula One racing. Tuesday night, we've got G-Force. Wednesday night is SARG. Thursday, we've got the Fuel IndyCar and RTG Talladega Challenge. Friday night is Rapid Fire Pizza National Series. And then Saturday night, we cap things off with Veterans of Foreign War Cup Series, I should say, and FTF Grand National Series. It is a full week of racing every single night here for Flatout Racing Network, and a crazy one here tonight at Watkins Glen from start to finish. And Anthony, I appreciate you joining me every step of the way.
It's always a pleasure to join you in the booth, Seth. It's we don't get to commentate often, but when we do, it's always fun for me. And I again like to thank FRM for letting me do these races. Not sure why they keep letting me do these, but I'm still here, and I appreciate every opportunity I get from you guys.
Well, we hope that you guys enjoyed our coverage here tonight from Watkins Glen, as it is Garrett Powell taking his second checkered flag of the season in the Clutch Drop Racing Cup Series. Again, next week, you'll be seeing these drivers take to the concrete mile of Dover International Raceway, continuing on their season. For Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday night as you've been watching another broadcast this evening, courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.